think I already lost my Australians.
What can I do you for?
Not you, the boy. We need a runner for the front lines.
Really? No.
Yes.
No. You can't make the kid do it. He'll just stumble into a firefight and get killed.
No, I can do it.
No. I'll do it.
Fine. You're here with me, and you will be running.
Hello Warfighters, war is hell. I have not done this series in a while, and someone reminded me quite a while ago that I needed to finish it, and I forgot about it. And then with the 100th anniversary of the end of World War I, I'm like, oh man, I really do need to finish this, especially with Battlefield 5 right around the corner, and I want to do the same thing for that I am doing with this one, which is kind of going through the campaign, playing through it, of course, as you can see right here. By the way, this is a playthrough I did like a week ago, and I hadn't played it for a long time, so yes, I am super rusty, and it will show. But what I wanted to do is talk about some of the things that are taking place in the campaign and what's happening, or what happened in real life, and talk about some of the history behind World War I. We've looked at how tanks came to be. Last episode we looked at, because as you could tell, this is featuring the Anzacs during the Gallipoli campaign, but we talked about some of the Victoria Cross winners for the Anzacs, so you got to get introduced to some really cool people. So since this is taking place during the Gallipoli campaign, I wanted to do this episode to kind of talk about some of the background, the early stages of the Gallipoli campaign, and in the next episode we'll talk some more about what took place on the ground and really what the Gallipoli campaign is known for. So with the Ottoman Empire during World War I, when things first started off, both sides really wanted to have the Ottoman Empire on their side. Obviously, the Middle East is a huge point of the world today because of oil, things like that. And even during World War I, the Middle East was a very key point when it came to warfare on a massive scale, and everybody wanted to have the Ottoman Empire, as I was telling you about. Prior to World War I, the British actually had some pretty good relations with the Turkish Empire, and it kind of seemed like that the British had believed that they were going to end up falling into their camp. But during the beginning of World War I, there was a fear that the Turkish might go the other way, and so what the British did is they actually had built a couple battleships for the Turks and ended up confiscating them prior to delivery. And so since the Turkish didn't get these warships, they were pretty angry about that. And not just because of the cost of these things, but the people of the Ottoman Empire had invested a lot. I read in one place that women had given up like wedding rings and things like that to kind of help raise money for purchasing these advanced naval vessels at the time. So with them not being delivered, that angered a lot of people in the Turkish Empire. Now here come the Germans with the Tirpitz and another warship. They basically delivered to the Turkish 2 warships to replace the ones that the British had confiscated. So at this point, the Turkish really were thinking that the Germans were going to be better to them. I read in one book, too, that the Turkish were kind of expecting there to be a bidding war to kind of take place between their services, and they wanted to sit back and see who was going to end up giving them the most. So this was the kind of gesture that the Ottoman Empire was really looking for. So the Turkish obviously end up joining the Central Powers, and the French and British and Russia really feel like that they have to do something to stop the Ottoman Empire, particularly with a naval raid that the Ottoman Empire was involved in. And really at this point, Russia didn't have too much naval-wise in the Black Sea to be able to counter what the Ottoman Empire was doing. So the plan for the Gallipoli campaign is kind of put forth. But one thing people don't actually know is that Gallipoli was actually plan B for the Triple Entente. What was initially preferred was to attack the important supply city of Alexandretta and using that as the area of invasion. Now that's in the central portion of the Turkish peninsula. You've got Syria and another number of other countries that really use that point for a lot of their supplies to come through. So they felt like if they could take it, they could cut it off and maybe even get some of the countries of the Ottoman Empire to end up supporting the Triple Entente. But it was deemed that for this first plan to go through, the French were going to have to contribute significantly as far as manpower, and they didn't have the troops to really execute the plan at that time of the war. They also didn't want the British operating in the areas that they deemed as their area of influence. There was actually an agreement in 1912 saying that the British wouldn't do this unless the French approved, and they obviously didn't at that point. So this plan was scrapped. So instead, a plan was put forth by Winston Churchill, who at the time was First Lord of the Admiralty, and the plan called for a naval task force to basically attack the Dardanelles Strait and get up to Constantinople. Hold on.
Fucking hell, you could have killed me.
But I didn't.
Nah, sure fucking didn't. Nice shot.
Oh, well, you know, I just kind of saw him out there and I...
You got falling lines across the board.
That's what I thought.
Bishop, go tell rear command that we'll be moving up.
Don't worry. I can handle myself here.
Head down, gun up. No open areas. Got it?
Got it.
I forgot there was a mid-mission cutscene there, but anyway, getting back to this proposal that was put forth by Winston Churchill. What he wanted to do was gather together this naval task force that was comprised of ships that really couldn't go toe-to-toe with the German fleet. These were basically obsolete battleships and things like that, and he wanted them to be used to push up the Dardanelles Strait and to bombard the capital of the Ottoman Empire, which was Constantinople, now Istanbul. Cue this song. And they had a number of outcomes that they hoped to achieve. One, because they had a very low view of the Ottoman Empire as a whole, the hope was that the task force could really push into Constantinople, and then just the sheer sight of the amount of vessels that were there would cause the Ottoman Empire to just surrender right then and there. Another outcome that they thought of is if they didn't surrender right then and there, the two main ammunition production facilities of the Ottoman Empire were in Constantinople and were within gun range. And so they could just annihilate those and cause a massive supply shortage of ammunition for the Ottoman Empire. But even if that didn't work too, there was hopes that some of the outlying territories would end up rise up and join the Triple Entente in the fight against the Central Powers in the Ottoman Empire. But anyway, because of this low viewpoint of how they perceived the Ottoman Empire and the Ottoman Empire's military, they thought this was going to be an easy victory. But one thing that was for sure, though, is that if they could go ahead and pull some of the Ottoman troops away from the Caucasus where the Russians were fighting them on the ground. Remember, they had been attacked by the Ottoman Empire on sea. Now they're facing them on land. That this would obviously help out the Russians quite a bit. So the plan was approved, and the task force was comprised of French, Indian, British, Anzac forces, and some others. They were gathered together in Egypt, and then later on in Lemnos, which is Altus for you Arma 3 folks, like the real version of Altus, to prepare for the attack. But we'll kind of focus in this video about the naval aspect of it a little bit. So in late February of 1915, the Naval Task Force started their naval bombardment of the Dardanelles, and though not getting quite the artillery spotting from aircraft that the Navy would have wanted, they were able to heavily damage some of the forts and other fortified positions on the Dardanelles. The mobile batteries, though, of the Ottoman Empire proved to be a real issue for the Naval Task Force because these guys could shoot and scoot. So at some points, Royal Marines were actually sent on the ground to destroy some of the guns. But what this did was something that the British didn't foresee, and that was really tip off the Turkish that there might be some ground forces in the area. So at the moment the Royal Marines started to hit the ground, the Turkish really started to prepare some of their defenses for a type of ground assault. There was a lot of hope early on, though, that there was going to be some success. The admiral in charge, Admiral Carden, told the British High Command that he expected to be in Constantinople within 14 days of him sending a message. And there were also messages that were being intercepted saying that the Ottomans were low on supplies, and so overall things were looking pretty good. But on March 18th, 1915, this naval task force saw a major defeat. What they were doing is they were heading through the Dardanelles Straits, which is the narrowest point of the Dardanelles. So this area is about 1 mile wide, and so that funnels a lot of ships into a very small point. This area was not only heavily armed by guns, but it was also heavily mined. There's a pretty cool story of one particular mine layer who snuck past the naval task force and was really able to lay down a number of mines. These mines, of course, were absolutely devastating and powerful. The French battleship Bouvet hit a mine and sunk in 30 seconds with 600 souls dying on board. There were also 2 other French ships that ended up striking mines. For the British, the HMS Irresistible, the HMS Inflexible, and the HMS Ocean all hit mines. These were significant losses for this task force, and so despite Admiral Carden thinking that they could continue to push on and that they were on the brink of victory, they were ordered to withdraw to save themselves from further losses and to set themselves up for the next stage, which was going to be a ground invasion, which we're going to talk about in the next video. So the naval fleet does pretty well and ends up kind of being turned back here pretty hard by the Turkish. So, more to come in the next video, which is going to come out soon. It'll be the last one here for the Gallipoli campaign, and then we're going to get to the final war story, which kind of talks about Lawrence of Arabia and kind of what's happening there in the Arab uprising, which is going to be really, really cool. So make sure you subscribe and hit the bell icon, not just for those videos, but also when I get to Battlefield 5 and kind of do this for that as well. I think you guys will enjoy some of the history, especially with that being a big deal for the game. Also, like the video if you enjoyed what you saw. Make sure you join our Discord. If you can support me through Patreon, please do. But thanks for watching. Warcell, you don't have to worry because Warfighters, I've got your 6.
Full scale retreat. They're going to shell the village and the fort to cover us. We need to get out now.
I sent men up to secure the fort.
A dead man. Who went?
Only those who volunteered, so naturally, all of them.
Fucking kids.
But you remember being his age?
Foster. Fuck. I gotta get that kid.
Go. I'll pretend I didn't see you.
This isn't on you.
Of course it is. One more death for me to live with. Go, you don't have much time.